Hi, everybody. Welcome to the lecture for the evening of January 26th, 2026. This class is Prof 4500 Risk Analysis. And we are actually doing our third week. So I'm talking to myself from the classroom because it's very cold out. And so I suspect people are going to enjoy this from the comfort of their home rather than coming to class. So welcome, whether you will join Zoom in real time later, whether you'll come to the classroom tonight, or whether you'll watch this recording from the warmth and comfort of your own home at a more convenient time. So today we have a lot of material to cover, and it's material that's going to set us up for next week. So it's very important that you think about these ideas and come to your own conclusions, and then ultimately use the ideas that we're talking about today in order to shape the paper that you're going to be proposing to write, which is really the main document, the main requirement for the rest of this class. So the topic of today's class and the topic of the assignments that you'll be completing during this week are: what are the differences between danger, risk, and opportunity? And these ideas can be a little bit difficult, primarily, I think, because in everyday language, we use the terms maybe not exactly synonymously, but we don't use them precisely. And in terms of business decisions and in terms of this course, those three things are very different and they're very specific. Hi, Duggar. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's too cold to walk across the street, I think. So
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
Uh-uh.
it's cold, but it's good to see you. I just got started just a minute ago talking about week three. So I'll just continue where I left off. And if
Perfect.
you have any questions, just let me know. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So the first thing we were going to talk about, and this document and this idea is very important in terms of writing your research question, which is going to be the topic sentence for your final paper in this class. So one of the things that I have experienced is that in general, people don't correctly define these three ideas: dangers, risk, or opportunity. And the reason it's so important for us in a really boots on the ground kind of way is because the paper that you're going to write this semester and the question that you're going to pose, the research question or the topic for your paper, which we're going to develop this week, has to be a risk. It can't be a danger and it can't be an opportunity. So for that reason, we need to define them pretty carefully. I was saying just a minute ago, another thing with risk, danger, and opportunity is that in everyday conversation, I was going to say parlance, but that's kind of a strange word. But in everyday conversation, we don't use those terms in the exact meaning that they have in terms of risk analysis. So before we can assess how to deal with something, we have to decide what it is. So what we're concerned with in this class is risk. But let's start on the left-hand side of this axis and talk about danger. A danger is a one-sided uncertainty. It means that the possibility of something bad happens, but there's really no upside. Generally, danger cannot be measured for monetary value, and dangers should be minimized, not managed. So there's a danger, of treating danger as a risk, and that's being called heartless, or treating it as an opportunity, which is called thrilled seeking. So if we look at danger, one of the things that when I was doing my prep work for this class, it occurred to me that there was a very famous example of a time where a company treated a danger kind of inadvertently, but they treated it as a risk. And that time was with a car that came out in the 1970s called the Ford Pinto. And Duggar, since you're here, I'll ask you, it was before your time, but do you know what was wrong with the Ford Pinto back in the 1970s?
I don't recall. It was something safety wise, right?
It was,
Some
that's exactly
a
right.
feature that was supposed to be helpful was not, right?
That is absolutely correct. What happened was they were at that time, other companies were designing cars to be smaller and lighter. And so Ford wanted to have an answer to like a Toyota car that weighed a certain amount and had a certain footprint on the highway. And they came up with the Ford Pinto. The problem was because they wanted it to be light and short, the gas tank was not properly shielded. And so if it was hit in not even really unusual impacts, but just if it was hit on the road, the gas tank would often explode. So that is a very dangerous situation. But I was able to find the original memo, and there's a lot of things I really love about this. Now, Duggar, can you see the memo or are you still seeing the Moodle page?
Yes, I can see the memo.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure. Sometimes I have to flip back and forth. But what happened, if you notice the title, the elegant title of this memo, fatalities associated with crash-induced fuel leaks and fires. So what really happened, Ford created this car based on, their engineers designed the car based on the specifications of weight and size and cost. And they left out enough controls around the gas tank. And then that is not a risk, right? That's really a danger. And the proper treatment for that kind of a danger would have been to recall the Ford Pinto and to create a safety protocol or a safety device to keep the gas tank more safe. But instead, somebody within the company came up with this idea and they said, write us a memo of how much risk there is associated with this. Well, what I'm telling you is it wasn't a risk at all. It was a danger. But somebody tried to do what they were told, and they wrote this memo about the danger of the Ford Pinto as though it were a risk. And so what they tried to do was to quantify the cost of all these people who are going to die. They tried to quantify how many people are going to die because of the gas tank or be injured significantly, and then assign it a dollar value. Well, this is what I said in that first line of that document that we were just looking at. If you pretend like a danger is a risk, that behavior is called heartless, right? Because there's no way that you can do that. And I don't really, I don't mean to say I shouldn't make assumptions about what they think, but I sort of feel that the people who wrote this memo, which is very interesting to read, were just really trying to be team players. They were trying to do what their boss asked them to, but the memo was leaked and the American public said, you guys are criminals. You guys are horrible people. This is a horrible company. This is a horrible thing. You can't assign a dollar value to people's deaths and maiming through a blazing fire crash that could be prevented or could be mitigated to a manageable level. You know, so that's why I said treating a danger as a risk is called heartless. Treating danger as an opportunity is called thrill seeking. Those examples are a little bit harder to find, but if you know any teenage boys, I think there's probably a good opportunity for finding things there. I remember one time finding one of my children riding a tractor to the bottom of a very tall tree and not being able to climb the tree, so putting on rollerblades on top of the tractor in order to grab a branch so that they could climb the tree, and then eventually climbing the tree in rollerblades. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to a normal thinking human being. However, I would say that's probably treating a danger as being thrill seeking. So danger that's used as thrill seeking is kind of seen as senseless, because even like we read in the book, we read in Deep Survival, you know, Mother Nature is very unforgiving, but the rules are pretty clearly laid out. And if you're going to do something that is not dangerous, but if you're going to take a big risk in Mother Nature, you really need to prepare yourself in a lot of different ways. Which does not include, I might add, putting on rollerblades and climbing a tractor to get to a very tall tree. So
I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
writing these notes down, right? So it's like, no, but
Don't do
but
that. Got it.
don't do it. That's right. Sometimes danger is necessary. Um, for example, just the simple act of driving a car could be dangerous, but we have safe enough cars in the United States, and we have rules in place so that people have to pass minimum standards of sobriety and mental cognition and eyesight and so forth, that we've sort of, unless we do something really strange, driving a car to work every day is not really a danger. It's definitely a risk, and it's possibly one of the riskiest things that we do, but it is something that has an upside, namely getting to work in that particular case. So treating danger as risk is heartless, treating danger as opportunity is thrill-seeking, and none of danger is a risk. A risk, which is sort of in the middle here, not to indicate that the downside of risk is danger and the upside of risk is opportunity. This is just it's not really a spectrum like that. But it's just putting these things as being three distinct things. Risk is a two-sided uncertainty. There's an amount of appropriate risk that should be determined based on your goals. And selecting optimal amount of risk is based on objective external circumstances. On your Moodle page, there is a very short video in this section. It's Warren Buffett on, I put a bunch of stuff. This topic is very, very interesting to me. There is a video here somewhere.
Oh, Warren Buffett opportunity. It's underneath the
Yes.
discussion forum.
Okay, thank you. There we go. There it is, this one. This is only about 6 minutes long, but Warren Buffett, who's the Oracle of Wall Street, talks about missing opportunity. So if you are sort of averse to risk, you'll probably miss out not on true opportunity. Well, what he talks about is investing as an opportunity. And he talks about the idea, for example, he said, I don't really know anything about software development, so I don't have a right to feel like I should make money on Microsoft. But I do know a lot about railroad transportation, so I can evaluate the documents and find out if investing in a railroad opportunity is a good idea or not. So it's a really neat video, because one of the things that I find about Warren Buffett is he's so flippin' dry. You know, I mean, he is richer than anybody. He's made more money than anybody, but he does not get lit up over this. This is not gambling to him. This is a procedure, and he has a way of dealing with it, and that's why he always makes money, because he doesn't ever do like I do sometimes, where I'm like, oh, I really love this company, I just really want to buy some of their stock, and then it ends up, I haven't done that for a long time, but back in my younger days I would do that sometimes. I just kind of fall in love with an idea, or think something was really cool that I really didn't know anything about, and not do well, you know, have an opportunity that did not pan out because of that. So with risk, like I said, the big deal is there has to be an upside and a downside to it. You could, for example, think about the idea of driving to work as a risk, in the sense that if you drive to work and you get to work reliably on time almost every day, you're probably going to get paid, and you're going to be able to have insurance, and you're going to be able to do some really good things that most adults need to do. And there is a downside, which is you could get into a wreck, but you're going to do things. You're not going to drive drunk. You're going to clean your windshield. I did that for quite some time, a couple mornings ago. You're going to make sure that you're not driving 97 miles an hour. You know, you're going to either get to work on time by driving at a reasonable speed, under reasonable conditions and so forth. So we minimize that idea by using some factors to determine what's going on. So if we have risk, which is a two-sided uncertainty, there are three ideas. We use best judgment and measure the outcomes continuously. That's a Warren Buffett thing. Think of risk in terms of size or amount rather than yes or no. If something seems too risky to you, maybe a stock investment, you might think maybe I'll risk a little bit and see what happens, instead of saying I'm gonna bet the farm on this risky deal. And keep risk constant over time. Your tolerance for risk may go down or go up at different stages of your life, but understanding how much risk you can live with, that's a good idea. So then, once again, danger is not risk and opportunity is not risk. The thing about risk is people who overestimate risk miss out on a lot of things that could have been done, and as Warren Buffett says, that don't ever show up in your balance sheet. People who take too much risk usually end up going bankrupt and losing their life savings and hopping from job to job and being in one little car wreck after another and losing apartments and blah blah blah. So those are the sort of things that play out that way. So let's talk about opportunity, which is really fun. Opportunity is a one-sided uncertainty. It's a possibility that something good will happen and there's no real downside. So you can get more opportunity or less opportunity. You can get the best outcome or an outcome that is not great, but you need to optimize opportunity. So if you look at this, you avoid or mitigate danger, you manage risk, and you optimize opportunity. So if you treat opportunity as a risk, it prevents growth. And if you treat opportunity as a danger, you stagnate. So that's sort of the breakdown. And this is the little like cheat sheet that I want you to refer back to when you're honing your question for your final paper. Okay, the final piece talks about risk analysis, because all we really need to do first with danger and opportunity is to make sure that our topic is a risk. So instead of a danger or an opportunity. So for example, when I sent you guys, or I showed you the example of when I wrecked an airplane, when I crashed an airplane in 1988, if I were to write a complete paper about that, the way I would do it is talk about the series of decisions that I made that led me to the point where I had my nose gear flat on the runway going too fast. Because that did not happen in a microcosm. That happened because of a bunch of choices I made. I was asked to turn a short base and I agreed to. I knew I was too high and too fast, and I went for the landing anyway. Okay, and there's a lot of other things that led to those conclusions. But in a different world, I could have said, I'm not landing, I have to do a full base, I have to go around again. And they would let you do that. They don't have, the tower or the control does not have the right to do that. But for some reason, I just thought I should just do what they said. And I thought, well, I would be fine. Well, I was not fine. So, I mean, that's how we do, that's what risk is all about. So, when we talk about risk assessment, we require this distinction first, danger, risk, opportunity, and then we need to set a goal, because the reason that you take a risk is because you're trying to pursue a goal, right? And the goal has to be specific and clear. The point of a goal is success in whatever that is. A goal has to be consistent with all laws and regulations. If you winning or reaching your goal is dependent upon you breaking laws and regulations, you're really thrill seeking at that point, or engaging in danger in the sense that you might go to jail and then all the bets are off. And you see that there's a lot of movies about people that do things like that, but in real life, it's not such a good idea. It looks better in the movies than it does in real life. A goal has to be realistic, or else it's called a dream. So, you know, one time, and I think this was this is a clear thing. My mother asked me, this was many years ago, if I had all the money in the world, what I would do with it. And I don't think she really meant that. She just meant if I had a lot of money. Well, if I had a lot of money, I would do one set of things. If I had all the money in the world and money wasn't the object, I would do other things. And I told her, which is true, if I had all the money in the world and money was not a point of an issue for me, I would hire a full-time pilot and a full-time jet. I would own a full-time jet and I would house it at my house. And I would have the pilot come take me wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted to go there. Well, that is never going to happen to me. So that is not going to fall in the category of a goal. That's a dream. A goal might be that if I'm on a long flight, I get to sit in first class, right? I mean, even that's kind of touchy for someone who teaches at a public school, but
Right.
you know. So, but I mean, that would be more realistic, right? I mean, that I'm gonna take, if I go to Hawaii, which is another goal, right? I would fly first class. That might be a goal. Whereas having a pilot at my beck and call and my own jet, maybe that's just a dream. A goal has to reflect the skills that define your institution and reflect your core competencies. Now, if you choose to write about a personal topic, you don't have to think about this as much, but this gets back to like what Warren Buffett said. I know a lot about railway transportation. So businesses that reflect an alliance or an alignment with railroad transportation, reflect the skills in the institution. He does not know anything about software development, so he's not going to purchase Microsoft in any great quantities because he can't evaluate it. He can't go through the steps and decide if how to manage the risk, because he doesn't even know what the risks, he doesn't know what is involved. And then so that's really important. So the conclusion of this paper, you want to mitigate danger, just means as little as possible, manage risk, make decisions based on good data. Don't let I heard the expression for gambling that glitter explodes in your stomach. When glitter starts exploding in your stomach, you are probably not using good decision-making processes. And then finally, seize opportunity. So when we're in this class, we're going to talk about risk. We'll talk about danger and opportunity just to make sure that we're not really talking about those, that we're not trying to analyze those things using methods of risk analysis, lest we become the writers of the original Ford Pinto memo. And I don't want that to be for anybody. The other reading assignment, so the first reading assignment is that memo. The second reading assignment is from kind of a hippie magazine called Mother Jones News or Mother Earth News, I can't remember which. And that article just talks about the craziness of the Pinto memo and Ford's approach to it, and really calling them out as being heartless, So there are two really good articles about this idea. And although I'm not trying to beat up too much on Ford, I'm not trying to really value Judge Ford, what I want you to see for this class is the difference, is what happens when you try to analyze a danger as a risk. Because that's what I don't want you to do. I want to have you look at whatever you write your paper on as being a risk. And so you can frame it that way for most everything. When I looked at your original paragraphs, there was only one that looked like it might be difficult, and I did put it in the comments. The other three looked like they would lend themselves nicely to risk analysis. So, another thing on the page that I just think is hilarious, and I don't really know why I find this so funny, but I've seen this over and over again, is workers' comp assigns a dollar value to different body parts. Okay. I know. And the reason for that is how useful their criteria is how useful that body part is to you in doing the job that you're doing. So if you are considered to be, there's a better word for it, but disabled by the state, you can't do the job anymore. So if you have certain injuries, they're going to be much more crucial to a particular job. But like this, if you look at this, if you lose your big toe, the US average, this was a few years ago, but it was worth, your big toe was worth, if you lost on the job, was worth about $23,000, and your entire foot was worth about $92,000. And it's really strange because once again, it does seem kind of heartless. I guess that's the part that always makes me just kind of shake my head. I mean, not funny like humorous, but funny because what is that really worth? If you lose your arm and they pay you a bunch of money, does anyone walk away saying, oh, that was a good deal? I'm really glad that we did that. I can't imagine, you know? So
Right.
anyway, having said this, there's some, like I said, there's some really good reading here. And there is another film. This one is quite long, Power Brokers, Montana Power Company's Downfall. And I think this is so applicable to this class. But if you read, it's not going to be tested, but you maybe put it on the background and listen to it while you're doing something else. But basically what happened was Montana Power Company was formed in the 1800s when copper mining was a big thing in Montana. And the power company owned everything. It was a monopoly. It had all the dams that produced hydro, had all the transmission lines, had all the generating plants, had everything. And so it ran really well and everybody was happy with it. And then at some point, some big money interest from out of state, primarily Enron, saw an opportunity, and I'm using that in quotes, to make a lot of money if power was deregulated in the state of Montana. So Enron and their cronies did an end run around the Montana legislature and got power deregulated at the end of a legislative session. And then there was this short window in which they could make a boatload of money. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars before the regulatory environment caught up with them. But in that window, commercial power that was being sold to California, that the amount of power that had previously cost $1 cost $1,000. And guess who reaped the $999 benefit? That would be Enron. So they knew it wasn't going to last forever, but they had fun with it. They were running with it for a little bit. And of course, we all know, maybe we don't know, Enron went out of business. Enron went bankrupt and a bunch of people went to jail for fraud. So probably didn't turn out well for them either. But it's really, it's a worthwhile video. It's a PBS video. So, you know, the quality is fine, but it's not like, you know, it's not like a Mark Wahlberg movie, you know, it's a documentary. So it's a little dry, but it's really definitely worth reading. But worth watching. But and then this is an article just from the Billings Gazette that sort of builds on this. Montana Power Company actually folded and went bankrupt, and the energy wing in Montana became Northwest Energy. And there's an article last year in the Billings Gazette about Northwest Energy, because they have to buy power sometimes, what the risk is to buying it ahead rather than buying it at the last minute, the difference in the cost structure and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. And it also has this benefit of talking about what we're talking about in this class, you know, where you're trying to risk stuff and make good business decisions based on the data that you have. So this week, we'll have, like we said, there's quite a bit here, but we do have, I have some discussions, which is really great. And then this week, what we're really doing is developing this question. So there's a discussion forum where I just really want you to hone in those ideas of danger, risk, and opportunity, and think about the paper that you're going to write for this class, making sure that you're talking about it being a risk. Okay. And if you can't talk about it, the topic you have as being a risk, you have to find another topic, because we just can't go ahead. We cannot do risk analysis if we're not talking about a risk. Obviously, that would be silly. So here's some guidelines, and what I'd like you to do this week, the main writing assignment is to propose a topic for your final paper. And when you send something to me, I'll send it back to you, and we may have a little bit of go back and forth, but we get it honed up. And then when I say, that's your topic, post it right here. And then that's what we're gonna be writing about for the rest of the semester. But I'm gonna be careful so that you don't fall into any pitfalls, so you don't pick a topic that's too big or too loose, or that isn't actually a risk. So that's the piece that we're gonna do this week, is to make sure that we're on the right track and that everybody's good to go for the rest of the semester. And yes, we do still see each other every Monday night. So I'm not saying like, okay, then bye, I'll see you in 5 weeks, and good luck, everybody. But that's the deal. So Chris or Duggar, do you have any questions for me, or what do you think at this point? Any comments, questions?
Nothing for the group or the class. I do have a question about my discussion guide
Yeah,
this week, and I don't care if we answer it on the recording or not, but
we can stop recording, and then you and I can just stay on Zoom and talk about it
Okay.
for a little bit. Does that sound? All right, sounds good.
Perfect.
So everybody read all the stuff. And as soon as I'll keep an eye on that. I keep an eye on your homework, and I'll give you some solid feedback so that you can hone in that topic. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, because that's what I'm here for. So everybody have a wonderful week. I'm going to stop recording, and then Duggar and I are going to have a little talk. Have a good day, you guys. Bye.